everyone. I'm Natalie Dielman from the U2 conference, and I'm so excited to be here with Kristen Dubenion-Smith. She sang at Bono's conversation with Jon Meacham at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., and we're going to talk to her a little bit about that today. So, Kristen, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everybody. Natalie said my name is Kristen Dubenion-Smith, and I currently live in Crofton, Maryland, which is, it's outside of Annapolis, but it's a very short, well, depends on the traffic and the day, but it's a pretty short commute into DC. So it's a good place to live if you work and commute into DC. I'm a professional singer, so I travel the world singing. And then when I'm home in DC, my church job is at the Washington National Cathedral, which is the reason why I was part of the choir that sang at the U2 book conference. So at the National Cathedral, there's a pro choir, which is 9 adults, 3 per section, alto, tenor, bass. And then the soprano section is made up of either girls who attend the National Cathedral School or boys who attend St. Albans. And St. Albans and National Cathedral School are it's all on the same campus with the cathedral. So the boys who sing are very small. Basically, they are trebles until they go through puberty and their voice changes. The girls are older. They start, I think they both start maybe in middle school. The boys might even start kind of infiltrating in maybe in 5th grade. They are tiny. For this event, I think it was a mixture of senior girls, or was it just girls? I'm blanking. I can't even remember now. I think it was just the girls that sang. So a mixture. It might have been all of the girls, but it was a good portion of the girls' choir singing the treble line along with us. I have been working at the National Cathedral in some capacity since 2011. When I first started, no women were in the choir. It was just men and boys, or men and girls. So countertenors would sing the alto line. And I was part of a volunteer choir. I was a pro person in a volunteer choir that sang the early service. That was dismantled. And then the director, Michael McCarthy, wanted to keep me there. So he created a position for me to be a cantor. So I sang by myself at the early service until that was dismantled. And then I finally got the call in 2016, Kristen, would you like to join the choir of men and boys and girls? I go, yes, as the first woman, I would love that honor. So that, shattering roofs. So that was my introduction into that choir. Despite wanting to be in that choir for a very long time, I couldn't. And this is now happening all over the world. Girl choristers are being invited to join with the boy choristers in these Episcopal Anglican choirs. It's such an ancient tradition, and in 1999 is when they invited the girls to join the boys at the National Cathedral, and then 2016 first woman, and now there's another woman in my section, so there's 2 female altos and 1 male alto.
So I know this isn't like U2 centric, but now I'm like super fascinated. Like, why was there this prohibition against women in the choir? Just that was the tradition for so long?
Yep. Yes. Men. It was a man's job, basically. So,
Wow.
And then there are so many opinions on this, and all over the internet. When another choir has decided to let girls or women join, the purists, they all creep out and they have a million things to say. The boy treble voice is very special and praised, and there's nothing like it. And while girls can sing similarly, there's nothing like that pure boy voice. And you know what? I think that having both singing together or separately is an amazing thing, and I'm so glad it happened. but there's just something about that boy treble voice before it changes, that there's nothing like it. And that's the Anglican tradition, men and boys.
Okay. So how did this event and your participation in it come about?
So the funny thing is, I desperately wanted to attend this event. And by the time I'm just crazy busy and traveling, by the time I figured out it was happening, because I had been away from the cathedral, it was sold out. So I was upset. And I'm like, oh, I wish I could like somehow like weasel my way in there, but that wasn't to happen. And then just, when was it? November 28th. I was actually away on a gig in Providence, Rhode Island, and I get an email, and the title is Bono event. And I'm like, oh, what is it gonna say? And then it says they've decided to use a choir for this event. Are you available? And I looked at the date, and I was like, oh no, I get back from Rhode Island that day. I have to do this. So I said yes. And then I crazily, I took a 7 p.m. Amtrak from Rhode Island, which was then an hour and a half delayed. So I got in to Baltimore at 3:30 in the morning. And then I had 7 Lyft rides canceled. And I'm like, and I just need to go to sleep for a few hours so I don't look terrible for this Bono event and sound terrible. So finally I got home. I think I was in bed by 5 a.m. My daughter woke me up at 8 a.m. and it didn't matter because I was so excited about the day that was unfolding. So we got I guess that was like a week-ish in advance that we found out. And then I think we were called around 4 maybe for a rehearsal.
So, and that was like the first that you saw the music that you would be singing?
That's normal. I mean,
okay.
It's very normal to not even rehearse stuff and just sight read it at the cathedral. Like you have to be able to do that. So no, I didn't know what we were singing until I got to the cathedral. And then when I saw it was MLK, I'm like, is Bono singing with us? Like, what is happening? And there were no details were coming. And that's when we do like presidential and high security stuff. We know we're doing these events, and then people ask me for details. And I'm like, I will have details when it's over, because we just don't really learn what's happening until it's happening. And it all unfolds in real time almost. So, yeah, we sang 2 pieces. A girl chorister sang the solo on one piece, and then one of our tenors, Ben Hawker, he's in one of the best barbershop groups, I think, in the country. And he was a natural choice to sing MLK. He'd actually sung it before. He sang it from memory, and singing it right next to the lectern, or the pulpit, where MLK preached his last sermon right before he died. It was a very overwhelming experience. And if I had been that girl chorister singing a solo for Bono, I think I would have just thrown up everywhere. This is the funny part. All of the girls dress exactly how I dressed in the 90s. They wear these little baby doll dresses with like a t-shirt under it with their Doc Martens.
Yeah, it's all coming back.
It's exactly how I dressed.
Yeah.
And they have no idea who he is. They knew who he was because their parents know who he is. So I'm pretty friendly with a lot of them, and I'm just like, oh my God, guys, you don't understand. This is crazy. How are you guys not freaking out? And it's because they don't have the same connection to U2 or Bono that I had growing up with their music, and basically being introduced at a very young age. I mean, I was 8 when Joshua Tree came out, and I didn't listen to that music then. But but Joshua Tree was my first album. I think somebody gave it to me in 6th or 7th grade on a cassette. It was my first U2 cassette. And I wore that thing out. And then in 1991, 92 with Achtung Baby. So that was the first. Were CDs out then? It might have been one of my first CDs.
I think they were. I had it on cassette as well.
Okay,
but
maybe Zooropa might have been my first CD.
Yeah.
So maybe that was still a
I think CDs did exist, but maybe they were just like more expensive or like,
and
I don't
then
know.
you have to have a thing to play them on. So
Right.
which
Right,
at
right.
that point in time, I didn't have that. I don't think
Right.
I had that until maybe my sophomore year in high school. But so yeah, like, gosh,
So you get there at like 4
ish, yeah, sometimes.
ish.
Yeah.
And so was everyone from the choir there? Like were there, because the picture that you sent, maybe there are like what, 12 people, 15 people?
There were
So was that
9 pros.
okay?
There might have been 9-ish pros. I feel like there might have been 4 per section. Wait, yes, that's true. So that would be like 12 adults, and then the picture that was taken, I mean, I would have just assumed that most people who sang the concert, because we were all standing there, because we were told, we were in what's called the slipe, which is where we line up before church. So we were told to stay in the slipe after we were done, because Bono would exit through there. So we were just, the director was like, I'm just standing here making it sound like I'm giving you notes. But really, I'm just making it look like that because we're waiting for Bono.
Amazing. That's awesome.
So eventually he came, and then the audience basically had like a barrier set up, so they couldn't cross that barrier. Bono eventually did go over and like greet a bunch of those people, but they were just all watching us having this amazing moment with Bono. And somebody from the choir said, pushed me or made me like go over and talk to him. And I basically I don't think I said anything. I had all these things I wanted to say, and I said nothing because I just couldn't. Because when he came out onto the stage at the beginning of the conference, like my whole body went numb and I just started sobbing. And we were in the great choir, so we were visible, thank goodness. But then the same thing happened when we were waiting in the slipe. I just like went numb, and someone must have taken my phone, because I have pictures of that moment. And then I don't even remember him taking me by the arm and like sorority squatting with me like that. Until someone sent me that photo. They might have posted it on Facebook, and I'm like, I blacked out because I don't even remember that photo. I remember the photo of all kind of around him because it was staged and taken by the photographer at the cathedral. Any of the ones taken with my phone, that someone took my phone and took pictures, I don't remember those happening.
Amazing. So, I mean, so clearly you have been a fan since you were 8 years old.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about your fandom? Like what that's looked like?
Yeah. I mean, my dad listened to, growing up, classic rock. It was basically tons of Queen, Toto, Depeche Mode, so, the Beatles. I'm a huge Beatles fan. So I just grew up listening to really, really, really good music. And he had these cassette tapes, mixtapes, just stacks of them. And we would travel everywhere by pretty much car, because my dad didn't like to fly. So we would either do train or car. We would go on road trips all the time. And I was the DJ. I was in charge of putting the cassette tapes in. And interspersed were U2 songs. And I feel like maybe some of them were from War and Joshua Tree. So those were the 2 albums that I heard when I was really young. And then when I got my very first cassette tape, which was Joshua Tree, and then Achtung Baby in 91 when I was 11. From the Joshua Tree, the song that I would play on just loop was Where the Streets Have No Name. When I was late middle school, early high school, my parents split up and I was very, very angry. And I remember listening to many different groups, mostly Depeche Mode and U2. I just felt comforted by the music, by the words. Being a musician, I'm very comforted by music and melody and text. So it helped me through so many dark times. And Depeche Mode and U2, they're very spiritual. So I grew up in a pretty spiritual family, and I found a lot of comfort in that as well, which is why I loved this tour, this book tour, because I got to listen to Bono, not the whole group, Bono speak about spirituality, and I haven't read his book yet. That is on my list. I have some time off now, so yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's such a common refrain, and I think it's really, it speaks to like the power of U2, you know, that people will say, I listen to this music, I listen to these lyrics, and they just are a comfort or a balm to my soul. And I don't know, it's just very, I always hear other U2 fans say that, and it just sort of speaks to their power and their like ability to, I think, communicate and convey emotion to fellow human beings. So yeah. So you know, Bono's done this book tour, and he's doing 8 nights in New York at the Beacon. So he's like extending the tour.
Okay.
So, and I'm imagining that what you saw was a different show then. So I saw him in Chicago, and it was incredible. It was like a gift. Do you know what I mean? Like having loved them since I was 12 years old, like to be in this very intimate, beautiful theater and to hear him just speak, right, to tell stories, to share his life and his vulnerability, such a gift. But I think that the In Conversation with Jon Meacham in such a beautiful space, that has so much history, I would love to hear more about what you were able to see and hear, and then
I
sort
couldn't
of
see anything. That's the unfortunate part. I was behind a pillar. I saw nothing.
Could anyone else in the choir see stuff? It was just like where you were?
In the great choir, we are split into deck and can, decani and cantorus. And I was on the can side, and basically the whole can side, I think our vision was blocked, at least half of the row, but maybe the whole row. The whole deck side, I think that they saw the whole thing. But I don't know, like I watched it after, a little, not the whole thing. I watched pieces of it afterwards. And I feel like I was able to fully immerse myself in the conversation as much as possible because I was like in blackout mode. But what I took away is that he is such a storyteller, and I didn't really know that about him at all. He's so good with voices and just telling stories. So maybe I didn't even need to see him because I certainly could hear him. And I was enthralled.
So how did it work? Like, so were you singing throughout? Like there were singing breaks, or was it just at the end?
We sang at the very beginning. We sang before he came out. And give me a minute. Where would I even, I think it was like Irish or Gaelic song.
Mm-hmm.
It was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the song that the girl chorister sang the solo on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we sang at the very beginning,
Mm-hmm.
before Jon and Bono entered.
Mm-hmm.
Then they came out, and then they talked for over an hour. And then we
Wow.
sang MLK at the very end. And the crowd was clapping, and Bono had basically stood up and he gave us this like silent standing ovation, which just facing the choir, which I've used the word overwhelming multiple times, but it's the best word I can think of for all of that.
Right.
Just standing there and truly, truly appreciating what just took part.
Yeah. Was the audience, like, could you hear them reacting during the conversation?
Oh, they were,
yeah, okay.
They were just, yeah, they were so happy. I think that they were also pleasantly surprised by what a good storyteller he is, and all of his acting and voices. And he sang a little bit, which was really lovely. And he talked about his, he said, like, as a rock star, I would, go visit other rock stars, and they'd all be like drinking and partying before their show. And I can't do that. I have to be in a zone, and I have to warm up, and I have to be in the right space. I don't know how they would perform like that. And as a performer, I completely relate to that. I need to just be like just in my little zone before I go on stage. I don't know how people.
Yeah, I think that's what's so cool about your experience. I mean, not just you had this experience, but that you are also a musician and a performer and a singer, and you got to share your gift with this person who clearly means so much to you. And so if you had said something to Bono, do you want to share what you would have said?
I guess I would have just let him know how much he and his music touched and helped me through a very turbulent part of my life. I was an angsty teenager. I mean, we all are, but I was just in a really, really dark place. And I could have chosen many paths, and for a very long time, I think my parents thought I had kind of fallen off any path. And when I tell people about my past, and how naughty I was, and how angry I was, they just would never believe it, because I eventually found my way. And I would like to think that U2 and all the other bands that I was listening to on repeat in my room for hours on end and into the wee hours of the night, and I would just fall asleep, with my Walkman, and it was just always, I always had them on. I just didn't want to hear what was going on around me. I didn't want to be part of that. So in some words like that, I would have said that to him, but none of that came out. It was like,
I would have. I saw Edge. We waited outside of the venue in Montreal when we saw them a few years ago, and he walked out, and I almost threw up. I was like, I've never had my body react that way to someone. And I was like, what is happening right now? I'm going to be sick.
It's a very weird feeling. And I also felt very sick. And any of my friends who heard this, they were all like, oh my God, we would have thrown up. I'm like, I'm surprised I didn't. Instead, my body just kind of went, like, shut down in a way. So I could process like the crazy spike in adrenaline.
So did you, because I wonder how much of that is just like having loved this band, or, having felt this emotion about a person. But was there also like an energy from him, like a charisma, or
Oh
like that you could
yeah,
feel that? Yeah.
he was super charismatic, and
Yeah.
he was truly interested. I mean, he
Mm.
came over to all of us and he spoke with Ben, the tenor soloist. He spoke with him for quite some time, which was just, he didn't have to do that. Like, he didn't have to talk to us or then talk to Ben for, I don't know, it felt like forever. He could have, he's so busy. And I think he left the cathedral and got on a plane did he go to like Spain? Am I making that up? I don't even know.
Maybe. Nope. That
Yeah,
sounds
he
right.
went somewhere in extreme after he left the cathedral, and he didn't have to stop and talk to all of us and waste time on us nobodies, basically. But we weren't nobodies to him. We were very important people to him, and especially Ben, who sang his heart and soul out. And Bono could feel that and definitely let Ben know exactly how he felt about his singing, his performance, and yeah, it was really heartwarming.
That's awesome. Did you feel that same sort of numbness when you were singing? Or when you were singing, were you like, no, I'm on
No, I
my
go into
job?
performance mode,
Yeah.
and then I'm doing my job, and I have to perform.
Yeah.
I have to do a good job. So not to say that I didn't have nerves and didn't butterflies and all of that, the adrenaline, that was all still there. But then once I'm performing, then I'm performing.
Well, Kristen, thank you so much, especially like 4 days before Christmas,
Oh,
to
it's
talk with
totally
me about
fine.
this.
Things have been insane.
I
And
bet.
I'm a little bit toast now, a little bit burnt toast.
Yeah.
But things are winding down, and then I'm at the cathedral tomorrow. I'm at the cathedral 24th, 25th. So 2 p.m. on December 25th. I'm
Oh,
home,
wow.
and
Like for
we can celebrate.
Christmas Day Mass, you have to
Yeah,
go in. Yeah.
yeah,
Wow. Wow.
yep.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we got to talk about you
me
two for a
too.
little bit
Me too.
because I mean, what an amazing,
Mhm.
incredible experience.
And this was such a fun thing that was able to happen. Yeah, crazy, totally
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Have an awesome holiday.
You too.
All right.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.